Hey everyone, it's Casey. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing my top 5 audiobooks. I've mentioned before, I listen to a lot of audiobooks at work. I can normally get in about 4 to 6 hours of audiobooks a day at work. So I have a lot of recommendations. Well, 5 to be exact. So we are going to do this countdown style, starting at number 5 and working our way down to number 1. So my number 5 recommendation is Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell. This is a book that I had owned the physical copy for quite a while, but I never got around to reading it. Partly because I had read Eleanor and Park, also by Rainbow Rowell, and I did not like it, so I didn't really want to pick up any of her other books. But I did get the audiobook, and it turns out I really enjoyed it. So a quick premise of Fangirl, it follows Kath, who is 18 and she's just starting college. You see basically her first year of college. And she has a twin, and the twin is trying to kind of break away from her. And Kath, she's pretty shy, but so you see her making new friends, especially with her roommate. You see her in a relationship and have a boy that she likes. But mostly what the story is about is Kath writes fan fiction. She writes it it's called Simon Snow. It's basically a Harry Potter, and an offshoot. That fan fiction, you get little snippets of it throughout the book, and it's actually its own book now called Carry On. I'm not going to read that because I didn't really like the fan fiction parts of the book when it would just be like 1 or 2 pages of her fan fiction. I didn't really like that, but just so you know, her fan fiction is now its own book called Carry On. I don't know if I already said that. Anyway, so like I said, Fangirl was just a really nice YA contemporary, just kind of one of those almost mindless, like you don't really have to think too much while reading or while listening to it. But I think what this did was show me that audiobooks are a really great tool to kind of get into a book that you didn't necessarily want to read, or that you had been putting off for a while, or that was intimidating to you in some way. Because what ended up happening is I listened to Fangirl while I was at work, and then since I had the physical copy, I came home and would actually read a couple chapters of it and ended up finishing it that way. And that's happened a lot with books that I listen to on audio and actually have the physical copy. I'll normally come home and then read a little bit more in it, because audiobooks are a great way to kind of get you sucked into the story. So I would definitely recommend that. My number 4 recommendation is actually kind of an entire genre, and that is classics. I read, quite a few classics, not anything to write home about, but when I do read them, I like to listen to them on audiobook, because again, they can get me hooked in. So one that I recently read was Willa Cather's O Pioneers, and normally when I read classics, what I do is I listen to the audiobook but read along with the actual physical copy. Classics, especially for me, I associate them with being hard to read, and having, because it's not like Fangirl, right? Or I said Fangirl was kind of like a mindless book. Classics normally aren't mindless, and that's what makes them, classics. You kind of do have to put some thought into it, and there normally are plots and themes that you have to kind of, dig out. But they are enjoyable, like O Pioneers. I have been wanting to read this for like 10 years, and so I finally got around to it with the help of an audiobook, and I loved it. Another classic that I read this year was Pride and Prejudice, and the audiobook that I listened to was narrated by Rosamund Pike, who played Jane in the 2005 version of the movie, the one with Keira Knightley. And so that was really interesting, listening to, an actor narrate a book. It was very enjoyable, because a lot of the books I actually am recommending are narrated by actors, because I think they can use their voice as a tool, and they're such good storytellers that sometimes you listen to audiobooks by just like a narrator who that's their own job, and they can read it very flatly, and those are not enjoyable audiobooks, even if the story is really engaging. So I would definitely recommend listening to classics on audiobooks. to help you read, especially like Pride and Prejudice. It was written in the 1800s, so it's kind of old English style. So it really helped me listening to it versus reading it, like physically reading it. My number 3 recommendation kind of goes along with what I just said about actors being great narrators on audiobooks. I love to read a celebrity memoir. And lately, I've been really liking listening to them on audiobook because most of the time they are narrated by the celebrity themselves. And normally, when you read a celebrity memoir, you're interested in that celebrity and you're at least familiar with them. So I think with the audiobooks, you can pick up on so much more of how they use their voice. You can pick up on their jokes. You can pick up on if they like sigh or if they like change their voice when they're talking about a co-star, you can be like, oh, like they're saying they like that co-star, but I don't think they really did like that co-star. Things like that. So one of the recent audiobooks, celebrity memoirs that I listened to was Why Not Me by Mindy Kaling. So Why Not Me follows Mindy Kaling as she's starting the Mindy Project, and as she's working in it. She's that's her show on Hulu, and she's the creator and she's the showrunner. So she talks a lot about it, and then like the head writer, I think. And like I said, I'm very familiar with Mindy Kaling. She's one of my favorite actors, and so I could pick up on a lot of her humor with her voice. I thought it was just a great narration and a great memoir. So the second celebrity memoir that I've listened to recently is You're Never Weird on the Internet by Felicia Day. Felicia Day, if you don't know, I know her from Eureka. I guess she was also on Supernatural. But she's a really popular gamer, and she's really popular in kind of nerd culture and like the Comic-Con group. And so she talks a lot, it's about like her life, but she also talks a lot about being a woman in a predominantly male culture, which, nerd culture is predominantly male in gaming. So that was really interesting to read, kind of about her struggles. Like, she openly talks about this time that she got like bullied on the internet for kind of being a woman and like the things that people said to her and everything. So I would definitely recommend this. Like I said, she also narrated it, and so I think it gave you got a lot of more insight when you hear their voices telling their own stories as opposed to just reading their words. So my number 2 recommendation is Someday, Someday Maybe by Lauren Graham. Lauren Graham is another actress, but this is actually a novel. It's her first novel. Lauren Graham is from Gilmore Girls and from Parenthood. So this novel, it takes place in 1995, and it's about Franny, who has given herself 3 years to become an actress in New York, and if she doesn't make it, she's going to move home. So this takes place in the last 6 months of her deadline. So you see her struggling to find work. She's a waiter or a bartender. I'm not sure. It doesn't matter. But you see her struggling to book commercials and to book a show and to find an agent. You also see her dealing with her loved ones and her roommates, and she starts a relationship. I thoroughly enjoyed this book. The story itself was just really good, so even if you don't like audiobooks, I would definitely recommend the actual book. But Lauren Graham narrates it, and again, she's able to use her voice to tell this story in such like a great way. She has a lot of passion for her story, and I think it's a little bit like autobiographical. So I just thoroughly enjoyed this, and I'm very familiar with Lauren Graham's voice and her habits of speech and everything. So I think that really added a lot to the story. And lastly, my number 1 recommendation is Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. It is narrated by Will Wheaton, and you guys, I just finished this either last week or the week before, and it is so good. It was the most just great experience listening to. It's a really great example of when a strong story and a strong narrator combine to create just a wonderful experience. So I'll give you just a little breakdown of the actual story. It follows 17-year-old Wade, And it takes place in a not so distant future. It's a dystopian-like universe, but it's not too different from America. It's not like the Hunger Games, districts or anything. So, and there's also this online universe called the Oasis that everyone is in, that everyone is a part of, and you can go there and go to school. Like Wade goes to school in the Oasis, and people can work there. And it's like this all-encompassing cultural thing. And to go into it, you wear like the virtual goggles and the virtual gloves and everything. The creator of the Oasis was obsessed with the 80s. And so when he died, he left his whole fortune and to who could ever solve this treasure hunt. And you have to find 3 keys that lead into 3 different doors, and at the end of this door there's this like Easter egg that if you find that, you win like his billions of dollars. It'd be like if Mark Zuckerberg did this. And so all the clues have to do with the 80s. The 80s culture, music, television shows, movies, video games obviously are really heavy into it. Having said that, I don't think that you need to know a lot about the 80s to enjoy this book. I only know the real basics. Like, I know what Family Ties is. I know what Back to the Future is. Basically, I only know things about Michael J. Fox. So I think that if you don't know about the 80s, you can still enjoy this book. If you do know about the 80s or were alive during that period or also are obsessed with it, I think you're going to get so much out of this book. But I think both groups of people can enjoy Ready Player One. So anyway, the story is about Wade. It takes place 5 years after the creator of the Oasis dies, and so it's about Wade kind of trying to find the treasure and about the friends that he makes online and the enemies that he makes online, and kind of the struggle of being famous on the internet versus living a real life, which was a really interesting point to hear about in 2017, where obviously the internet is so prevalent. So the story itself I found to be very engaging, very fast-paced. I cared about all the characters. They were all very well-rounded. It was just such an interesting take on the internet and kind of like its effect that it can have on people. It can give you confidence, but it can also do bad. Like it can make you not engage with the real world. And then Will Wheaton was such a good narrator. If you're not familiar with Will Wheaton, he is an actor. He's on Star Trek Next Generation, I believe. And he was able to use his voice as just such a powerful storytelling tool. Like when the main character got excited, Will would also use his voice and get very excited, which you don't get a lot in audiobooks. It seems to be focused on like reading the book really evenly, but instead of just narrating the book to us, I feel like Will Wheaton was like actually telling us a story. So when things got really heated, like he would get heated. When things got fast paced, like he would, pick up his pace a little bit. It was just so good. His tone of voice, his like actual voice was very nice and soothing. It wasn't like annoying. I listened to an audiobook recently. I can't even remember what it was, but the narrator had such a nasally voice. I was like, no, I can't listen to you for 4 hours in my ears. Your voice is so annoying to me. But I thought Will Wheaton's voice was just amazing. It's actually, and I think this shows the power of audiobooks, because I was just reading Ready Player One because there's going to be a movie of it coming out, I think in 2018. And that was it. I wasn't going to read any of the other authors' books. But after reading this, Will Wheaton narrates all of Ernest Cline's books. So now I'm going to read or listen to all of Ernest Cline's books. I just picked up Armada. I think that's the next one by Ernest Cline I picked up. And I have no idea what it's about. I think it also has to do with video games of some sort. But Will Wheaton narrates it, so I'm definitely going to check out the audiobook and listen to it, because it was just the most wonderful experience I've ever had. No, that's an overreaction. It was very good though. Anyway, I will stop talking about Ready Player One. I do want to make one notable mention of really great audiobooks, and that is the Harry Potters. Earlier this year, I listened to books 1 through 3, narrated by Jim Dale. And I thought it was such a great way to experience the Harry Potters in a completely new way. I had never listened to the audiobooks before. And I thought Jim Dale did such a great I thought Jim Dale did such a good job with his voice. There's so many characters in those books, and he gave each one a very distinct voice, but one that didn't contradict from what I already knew about that character. For example, he didn't make Hagrid have like a crazy high pitched voice that was like, what? That's not Hagrid. I thought he did such a good job to give everyone their own sound, but to have it be reminiscent of the actual character. So next year, I think I want to listen to numbers, 4 through 7 or whatever on audiobook too. I think that'd be, it's just a nice way to experience those books that, are just so wonderful in a very new light. And a different, hopefully, maybe I'll get something new from them than just reading them physically or, of course, watching the movies. Anyway, so those are my top 5 favorite audiobooks. Please subscribe and leave a comment of your favorite audiobooks, or have you listened to Ready Player One? Let me know. Or have you read it? I just want to talk about that book all the time now. I love that book. Anyway, okay, thanks.